The punk rock movement added a socially conscious layer to its ranks thanks to female musicians carving out their own niche by making edgy statements about their desire to free themselves from social oppression. Fighting against the often misogynist tropes of hard rock, these women never shied away from topics like sexual violence and gender equality, ultimately pushing forward an agenda of female empowerment through their music. The driving force behind the Riot Grrrl way of thinking was the band Bikini Kill. Members of the Washington State Act took over the production aspects as well as the creative side of making music, and thus shattered the notion that you need deals with big record labels to be heard. Rebelling against mainstream media's exclusion of their ethos, the original Riot Grrrls went back to the do-it-yourself roots of punk. Spreading their message via Xeroxed fanzines, they brought together like-minded people, who in turn formed the basis of a community that followed and supported these artists. And as its voice grew stronger, the movement attracted the interest of prominent musical figures outside its own realm. One such influential ally was popular BBC radio DJ John Peel, who helped female punk rock reach an even wider audience. The hard work of these outcast idealists paid off when their message was eventually embraced by chart-topping, multi-platinum selling male musicians like Seattle band Nirvana, who fused gender politics taught to them by female punk rockers into their own music. And it was this intellectual collaboration that brought an end to the hegemony of testosterone-fueled rock bands like Guns N' Roses and Mötley Crüe at the billboards. Looking at the number of female rockers within the industry today, it is their and the listeners' binding duty to remember and hail the thankless deeds committed by the then marginalized Riot Grrrls, who paved the way for a future where women performers are now considered equals to their male counterparts.
Known as the Professor of Punk, Vivien Goldman joins us now. She's a journalist, writer and musician who's about to publish her new book, Revenge of the She-Punks. Hello, Vivien. Welcome to Showcase.
Hello, it's super exciting to be with you in Istanbul.
So your book is about the history of female punk rockers. And I want to ask you about how hard it has been for them. I mean, claiming the same interest and respect as men.
Well, I have to say that I was around as a rock writer in the British music press right before punk hit. And I can tell you that it was it was like a cyclone, changing everything. Because before that, it was understood that it was absolutely male dominated. And even at editorial meetings where often I was the only girl, the guys would say, you know, women aren't interested in music, women don't buy music, we shouldn't think about women. And that was the attitude, very rockist, laddist. They didn't want to hear anything about women. And then punk overthrew so many things in the old rock industry where the bands had been there since the 60s, like the Pink Floyd, Genesis, that along with the changing of the guard, suddenly women had a chance. I was very moved to see those photos of my punk girlfriends around your studio today. And
I want to hear your personal experience of those times, 1970s London, when you were a music journalist and people were telling you that women were not interested in music, and you were actually the editor-in-chief of a music magazine.
It was a battle at that time. You know, some of the guys, of course, I'm still friends with, but there was that attitude where it was territorial and they didn't want to have women in any decision-making, power. And the sort of women's voices that came in with punk, people like Polystyrene of X-Ray Specs, people like the Raincoats, people whose photos you have around the studio today, it was a new sound. And only because this new order was happening, suddenly women had some access in an unprecedented way.
And I wonder
So,
what role they played on the later she-punks, the pioneers like Slits or Wendy or Williams. Can you please talk me through that?
sure. Well, when I set out to write the book, it was actually prompted. I was asked to do it by the University of Texas Press because of something. Because one of my songs, "Private Armies," was in a list of the 33 most influential feminist punk songs, something like that, in the magazine Pitchfork. And to me, I wanted to discover what impact our generation had made, the sort of faces you see around you right today in the studio. And, I saw that, I discovered through the generosity of Kathleen Hanna of Riot Grrrl talking to me at length, that yes, our first generation in London really was meaningful and impactful and helped give them courage in America to make that Riot Grrrl movement.
I mean, female punk rockers didn't only have influence within the punk rock world, but also outside of it as well. Can you please tell me more about that? For example, a very common example given is Nirvana and their, fusion of gender politics into their music and shaking the world with that, really. Can you please talk me through that?
My dear friend Ari from the Slits, who died of breast cancer at around the same time as polystyrene of X-ray specs, she used to have a line, I'm not here to be liked, I'm here to be heard. And that takes a lot of confidence and courage, when you feel you have something to say. And, especially as women, we are brought up, I know I was, really to please. And that's nice, and we still like to please, but there has to be a time when if you believe in something, you've got to be able to have the guts to say it, even if, maybe everybody doesn't love you because of it. And maybe that's even harder for us, as girls, as women, because we're always meant to just make everybody comfortable and happy. And that's a beautiful thing. But you have to be able to find your boundaries, that when you think things are wrong, to be able to say that, and in your art even to say that. So somebody like Kurt Cobain, he was good friends with Kathleen Hanna, who's in my book. She actually came up with that line, "Smells like Teen Spirit." And he was just, as far as I gather, because I never met him, as far as I gather, he was just a sensitive man, and so he supported us, people like me, women, in our struggle to be heard, which is sometimes a struggle. We've got to be prepared to go for it and tough it out.
Amazing. I mean, punk rock has been liberating and empowering for so many people around the world, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Vivien, for joining us on Showcase today.